This is Chop, Cut, Rebuild. Real cars. Real techs. Real deadlines. Hosted by Dan Woods. Chop, Cut, Rebuild.
When a builder takes on a project, there's a number of things they have to consider. The car is just the easy part. They actually have to think about what resources they have, the skills of the build team, and the availability of parts. Well, that last problem just got blown off the scale. So guys, now that you have it here in your own light, what do you think?
Well, it's gonna need a lot of work, Dan.
Yeah, I would say so. And we have new team members, right?
Yep, we got a couple new additions. We've got Craig.
Craig?
And Craig.
Oh, great. So we added two, but only one name. That'll make it easier for me. All right, let's get some glasses and gloves and get at it.
All right. My name's Edgar Solar, and I work here for Classic. I'm participating in the build. This time around, we decided to take on a 1956 convertible Chevy Bel Air.
He found this car through a couple of friends, and it was up in LA, and we went up, took a look at it. It looked a little rough from where I was sitting, but until you get the car part, you really can't judge what you got. Now that we own it, we'll have to make it work.
Making this Bel Air work will require more than a little effort. While it may not be all together or even close to running, it does have lots of parts and trim that aren't easy to pick up.
Pushed it out onto the street, pushed it up onto the trailer, lashed it down, and that started the fun.
We know there's fun involved because we saw a smile on the face of the guy who sold it to us as we drove off. That's the most fun he's had in a long time.
My name is Craig Chaffers, and I'm the lead tech for the Chop Cut Rebuild. Before we got involved in tearing apart the car, it was pretty rough. I mean, you could already see that the rockers were rusted, floors were rusted through, quarter panels were caved in. So we knew it was going to be a challenge going in, building this car.
Hey, at least the convertible top still works. That's a good sign.
The reason we went with this car is that there aren't a lot of convertibles out there, and we wanted to showcase the products that Classic Industries offers for the new Tri-5. There's very few out there, and the ones that are in great condition are pretty pricey.
$35,000. We got a deal.
You know, the guys always ask me to do the tricky work, like removing parts that have fluids in them, because they know I've got a level of expertise second to none in that area.
It's moments like those that really challenge my dry sense of humor.
Basically, since this is a new project for us, we really wanted to clear everything out and see what we're working with. We wanted to check out the canvas to see, how we're gonna approach the repair and rebuilding of this car.
I don't know if I'd call this car a canvas. There isn't even any of it left on the roof.
Well, when we were pulling apart the car, we realized there are a lot of things we couldn't reuse. The fenders are a little on the iffy side. We might be able to reuse those. Not too much rust in them, but the floor pans are gone. The rear quarter panels are gone.
To be honest with you, I think that this car, it was really bad shape. I mean, most every body panel on it had some type of, rust or damage from a collision. I'd say the dash is probably one of the best pieces that I saw that was still intact.
Oh, you're not going to reuse this, are you?
Well, at this point, we don't know, Dan. We might have to restore it or maybe go a different route.
Oh, okay. Well, you've got other manufacturing sources, too, for these things, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, suppliers are gonna love this project.
Right now, all I can see is just the parts that came off the car. Will probably be the only thing we can reuse.
There's lots we'll probably use from this car, not to reuse them. We'll probably need them as a reference to know what the new part should look like. Kind of like giving a description to a police sketch artist.
Mark, have you seen the crack here? I mean, this is not going to survive, and it's cracked on the other side, too.
Oh, come on, Dan. It's just a little welding. You're good at welding.
There's no way this car is going to look like this.
Well, I think we can do it.
Maybe?
I sure hope Dan can come up with a good alternative to not having to replace every piece of sheet metal on this car.
I think there's a solution here.
You find another car?
Well, in your own catalog on page 175, Real Deal Steel.
Think they'll help us?
Well, the whole body, right? And assembled in the USA. Where are these guys located?
I think they're in Florida.
I love to travel. So is there any of this metal we're going to reuse?
You might be able to use this piece of metal.
These new guys catch on quick. This is Chop Cut Rebuild. Presented by Classic Industries, America's first choice in restoration and performance parts. California builders get a lot of credit for creating and restoring great cars, but that skill isn't exclusive to the West Coast. The East has their fair share of top builders too. Joe?
Dan, good to see you.
Nice to see you. So are you going to be the solution to our problems?
Dan, I think we can help you out with this.
Okay.
Let's go outside, meet my partner, Randy.
Great.
I'm Joe Whitaker, co-founding partner of Real Deal Steel.
Dan, I'd like to introduce you to my partner, Randy Irwin.
Hey Dan, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, Randy.
Randy Irwin, Sanford, Florida, and I'm one of the owners of Real Deal Steel. The folks asked us to build a 56 Chevy for them. They had purchased a car that was in bad enough shape that it needed a new body, a replacement body.
Is this going to be our 56?
Once this is all put together, you'll have your 56 Chevy Convertible.
Real Deal takes the products from multiple manufacturers and puts them all together. They don't make them, they just make sure it fits.
It's just like a giant 56 Chevy Convertible jigsaw puzzle.
There are 52 individual pieces required to put our 56 convertible together. The lift and rotisserie system and the fixture system allows us to take those pieces, put them all together, and build a finished car that fits and looks like a 56 Chevy.
So how does all these pins work?
Actually, these pins on the platform key into existing holes in the factory floor braces. So once we pull it down, it's perfectly square, perfectly flat, perfectly true.
This jig, or fixture, is the key to maintaining a quality product with consistency.
Once the floor is on the rotisserie, then the fun begins. We install piles and piles of fixtures that are going to line up all the rest of the panels to come. Then we begin installing the other panels. The first panel to go in when the fixtures are in place is the cowl and firewall panel.
Heavy grade steel is used to create each fixture to ensure it won't change or bend each time it's used.
Once the cowl firewall is in position, it is then vice gripped to the forward leading edge of the floor pan, and then we get to the good stuff. We start to spot weld it in place.
Had Dan helping us with the spot welder, and that was great. The spot welders are huge, and in some instances you have to have two people, one driving it and one shooting it.
Maybe even a third that knows what he's doing.
Everything went well until we got to the passenger side front corner, and these spot welders are water cooled because we use them so fast that water is circulated through the spot welder. Dan did not break the thing. It's just one of those things that happens.
We cleared that last comment with our insurance company, just to be sure.
Once the cowl was completed and welded, we moved on to installing the rear inner quarter structure.
Very little of the metal going on at this stage. It's the stuff you'll be able to see. These are the panels that give the body support, and with this being a convertible body, there's more than the usual amount of steel giving support to the exterior panels.
Next piece?
Yes, sir.
The rear inner wheel well portion of the inner quarter structure has to be vice gripped into place with lots of vice grips because you have a lot of metal there that has to move into just the right position.
Our biggest expense opening this place was buying $990 worth of vice grips. But you've got to have those. We've got to vice grip them when we're putting panels together. We've got to vice grip it about every 2 inches so it squeezes the metal together so that when you spot weld it, you don't blow holes in it. We probably used about 20 vice grips to hold it in place as we spot weld, and then as we spot weld, we take them out of the way and just keep going across.
$999 of pliers. Sounds like one of those bad road trip songs.
The 56 convertible that we're assembling for Classic Industries is going to be very similar in appearance and in construction to an original 56 convertible that would have been built back in 1956. We've had some people that worked in the assembly plants back then tell us how similar our fixtures are to the fixtures that they used to build real 56 Chevys.
If beauty is only skin deep, then what Real Deal Steel has planned for us next is a lot of beauty. It's day 2 at Real Deal Steel, which means at the end of this, we should have a real deal body.
When Dan got here this morning, first thing we did was start getting everything together for the outer skins to make the skeleton look like a car. The first thing we removed were the outriggers in the trunk area that locate the inner quarter panels to the trunk fixture. We brought the outer quarter panels over to the inner quarter panel, set them up in place, held them in place with the Tech screws, and made sure that we had the proper trunk gap from the inner quarter panels to where the trunk lid's going to go.
These are the kind of minute details that make politicians ask the question, can you build it in my district?
Once the rear quarter panels are in place, we then take the trunk fixture out and then the deck lid goes on. Or in this case, a test deck lid that we use to final tune the fit of the quarter panels.
Now is when we get to put Joe in the trunk and close the trunk.
Oh, awesome. Whenever I see stuff like this happen, it makes me wonder if these two discussed this step before they went into business together, or if they just thought it was fun and they would take turns at it.
Bring it on down, Dan, and then we'll actually adjust it left to right and front to rear, rough it in. That looks pretty even right there till we pull the package tray in, which will actually pull the quarters in. So we'll split the difference and go ahead and bolt it up right about there, Joe. I think he's ready.
And then the package tray goes on to achieve the proper position on the quarter panels. In addition to that panel, the piece behind the deck lid and down low is installed to determine the bottom of the trunk gap.
You may have noticed that some of this metal has different coatings. Well, that's because it doesn't all come from the same manufacturers. Some of it is even salvage.
Then we started removing the rest of the fixture. The H fixture is very heavy, and once the quarters are installed, it's a little hard to lean over and pick the whole thing up. We don't like to walk through the center of the car, put our feet inside the car, so we use the forklift to pick up the H, carry it out of the way.
So now we take this fixture out, right?
Yep, the first one in is the last one out.
We push 2 cam locks out of the way on each side, pick it up and out of the floor, and all of a sudden, this beautiful shiny body is free of blue fixtures. It's a car body on its own now. We then move to installing the dashboard.
A fixed dash is a feature which disappeared on later cars, but in the 1950s it was a key part of the support structure.
It is spot welded all across the pinch weld flange just behind the windshield opening, and then it's welded down underneath, and all of a sudden it goes from being a kind of an empty, loose-looking cowl assembly to a car up front.
The hinges go on next. They go on the cowl, and then the doors go onto the hinges. Getting the hinges up in there, it's held on with 4 bolts, and getting your fingers up in there and behind there, it's a bit of a trick to get the hinges bolted to the cowl.
These guys know every trick there is to assembling these cars, including how to make other people carry over the heavy parts.
The doors bolt on to the hinges with 3 bolts. We only use 2. We're just aligning the door for now, making sure the door fits the opening properly, and make sure the rocker is set with the door is set with the quarter panel.
When the passenger door was initially installed and tightened up, we shut it and it fit pretty well. Classic Industries' new 56 convertible was born here in Florida, and the new baby will be shipped from Florida all the way across the country to Southern California to its new home, where it will ultimately be turned into a running, driving car.
This car is the epitome of what we try and do on Chop Cut Rebuild. Real cars, real techs, real shops, and now a real deal steel 56 Bel Air body.
This is Chop Cut Rebuild. Presented by Classic Industries, America's first choice in restoration and performance parts. Your car is meant to get you on the road. Turns out you can also be on the road to get your car. This is Seattle, Washington, and the Bel Air isn't going anywhere if we don't come here first.
Everybody's got their dream classic car, but before you think about the style, the make, the model, the year, the color, the horsepower, you better think about what you're going to put it on. At Art Morrison, they always think about that first. Hey, Craig.
Dan, how you doing?
Good. You ready to show me the shop?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
Let's go. My name is Craig Morrison with Art Morrison Enterprises. I took Dan on a tour of the facility so he can see what we do and how we do it.
So what is all this stuff?
All this material here is basically the raw material for doing our chassis. We have a mill in Ohio that would run 48,000 pounds of steel for us at a time, and it comes out on a flatbed semi-truck, and we warehouse it here at the shop.
And you've got square tube, round tube,
Yep, it all depends on what the particular project is, whether it's round tube or rectangular tube, and then it gets cut and bent up.
Where's that happen?
Right over here.
Okay.
So the next station I took Dan to was the processing of the tube itself. The first machine that all of the tubing goes through is just a bandsaw to cut it into length, and then from there it will get measured out for the bends that it will receive.
So what happens now?
Okay, so what Matt's gonna do is, now that the tube's all marked up, he's gonna take it over here to the bender, and we're gonna go ahead and bend some tubing.
Yes, I did offer my expertise with benders, but it turns out you need to be clear-headed for this job.
I took Dan over to the jig table and we got to watch the frame get loaded into position and tack welded into place.
So how many chassis have been in this fixture?
Well, by SEMA time this year, we'll hopefully have sold the 1,000th chassis out of this table.
1,000 chassis off this. That's a lot of Tri-5s.
That's a lot of Tri-5s.
My name is Tom Smith, and I build the Tri-5 chassis here at Art Morrison Enterprises. When Craig brought Dan over, I was busy putting in the rear end on the Tri-5, and he helped me tack and weld up a couple of brackets.
And whenever customer gets chassis number 993, I apologize now.
So after the Tri-5 chassis gets pulled out of the jig table, it then goes to the rotisserie, and we were able to take Dan over and show him one of our other chassis that was being flipped over and some of the final welds being put into place.
So over here, Dan, this is where we do all the assembly of our chassis before they go ahead and ship out.
The next stage that I took Dan to was the chassis assembly, where we got to see the actual chassis that Classic Industries is using.
We'll go ahead and put the front rear suspension on and crate it up and get it down to Classic Industries.
Okay.
How you doing? I'm Wally.
Dan Woods, nice to meet you.
Wally Trick. I work at Art Morrison Enterprises, do all the quality control and final frame assemblies. So what we'll do is we'll start with putting this tube in the back here. We'll go with this end of the housing, adjustable into the front. We'll use the second hole. When I gave the bar to Dan, I explained how we go about it. We usually start with the rear bolt first, swing it up into the upper hole position, but that's the desired location.
I like that. Desired location is really a polite way to say, Dan, do it like this.
So after the rear suspension was assembled in the chassis, we went ahead and moved forward to the front suspension.
Front suspension on this chassis is nothing like it was in 1956. This is comfort and control.
The final step of the front suspension assembly process was bolting the rack and pinion in place. It replicates a 79 to 93 Mustang rack and pinion, which is sort of the industry standard for steering component.
Craig, there's three things you never discuss: politics, religion, and Ford parts being used on a Chevy. Just kidding. You can talk politics if you want.
And now chassis number 933 is ready for shipping.
Yes, it is.
Awesome.
I don't know if 933 is a good name for a car. I'm sure there's a number of options.
I'm really excited to see this car that Classic Industries is putting together, because it will have the great classic body style of 55 to 57 Chevy with the modern day handling of a new car.
In less than a week, the guys at Classic Industries are going to have a new toy to play with. And thanks to the people at Art Morrison in Seattle, it's going to be on 4 wheels.
The past few weeks have been stressful for the team at Classic. Waiting will do that to you. They've been keeping busy getting organized, and finally, it's their turn to jump back into action.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So here it is, 1964 Impala chassis.
64?
That's what you wanted, right?
Well, we can always use a 64, but we'll use 56 this time.
What's first?
First thing we do is let's get it out of the crate.
Okay, gloves and glasses, right?
Yep.
Okay.
We started with the Art Morrison chassis and blasted it out of the crate. It's a little rough to get something that heavy flat. Dan was kind of like a kid at Christmas. All we had to do was really give him a crowbar and let him have at it.
This thing's beautiful, down to the welds, to the cutouts for the exhaust. I mean, this thing's gonna handle really well. It's too bad we gotta put a body on it, but we'll definitely feel the effects of it when we're driving it.
The way that the chassis looks coming fresh out of the crate, you can slap a coat of paint on it, put it under your ride, and be ready to roll.
All right, Craig, so what all do we have here?
So we've got our coilovers, we've got our Curry third member, sway bars, all the mounting brackets, and the front coilovers over there.
All right, so what do you want to do first?
Yeah, let's tackle the rear end first.
Okay.
Put the third member in, hang the coilovers, and do the rear sway bar.
All right.
We'll work in the back first.
All right.
goodness.
We were installing the rear coilovers. Strange sent the coilovers with fully adjustable, so we can adjust the dampening. We can actually adjust the stiffness or the softness in the coil spring. So the lower mount had a bushing installed into it. We just had to press it out. Once we pressed it out, it fit no problem on the lower shock stud.
So what happens if you don't have one of these Ranger heavy-duty shop presses with a 20-ton capacity in your garage? How do you get this out?
Well, to do that, it's not as difficult. If you have a vise that opens up wide enough, you could almost put this in a vise, you know, and press it out into here with a bench vise.
Okay. Yeah, because really this is a glorified vise, right?
Right.
Okay. All right.
It's heavy.
20 tons.
Art Morrison Enterprises has been working with Strange Engineering for years. And like Morrison, Strange is a family-owned business that earned their knowledge at racetracks around the country and implemented that knowledge into consumer and performance products. From a two-car garage in Illinois, they've grown into a 120,000 square foot facility.
That was tough. Do you want to hold that for me?
So the Art Morrison chassis came to us with a rear housing. There wasn't a third member. So we got the third member and the rear axles from Curry. We did have to press in the studs to hold the rear end to hold the third member to the rear end. And then once we got that done, went ahead and dropped the third member in. We didn't really have to put sealant or gasket in it right now because we're just mocking it up.
Yes, everything we're doing will be undone later on. You gotta be sure everything fits while it's still okay to scratch stuff.
So which way is this going to go?
This is going to go underneath the rear end, and then these will hit for the heim joints at the front of the frame.
Art Morrison provided for us a full heim joint sway bar unit that mounts cleanly into their frame, hidden by some aluminum plates. If you weren't looking for it, chances are you wouldn't even know it was there.
Okay, so this is going to be a little more complicated because we've got to put the axle in.
Right, we got the Curry axle, we got the Willwood brake drum, which is emergency brake.
Right.
The rear brakes, same size rotor, which is a 13-inch rotor, but we went with a 4-piston caliper in the back.
Setting the axle into the axle tube with the parking brake shoe bracket takes a little patience, practice, and caffeine-free effort.
The wheels that we got, they're a 13-inch rotor, so they'll work with anything bigger than a 17. The 17's in the front, we're going with 18's in the back. These brakes will fit perfect, and the thing will stop really nice.
You put in that big of a wheel, you need that big of a brake. You get these guys that put 24-inch rims on their car but neglect the brake system. They're the guys that are at AutoZone or a parts store changing their brakes every 2 weeks.
You know, diffs and discs can be difficult, but I think we caught a few brakes today.
This is Chop Cut Rebuild. Presented by Classic Industries, America's first choice in restoration and performance parts.
Wow, the deliveries keep getting bigger and bigger, don't they?
Yeah, we got that one big real deal steel one.
It's nice. What are you doing?
Well, we got to pull the calipers off because we're going to make this a roller, and the roller tires that we have won't clear the caliper.
Okay.
So Dan arrived, and we had the Art Morrison chassis on the lift. We have the real deal steel body, so we need to kind of swap positions with those. So we went ahead and put some Space Saver spare tires on the chassis so we can roll it out of the way and put the body on the lift.
She was down on the ground and ready to roll. We moved her out of the way and let Dan have his fun with the forklift. After a little bit of instruction to make sure he didn't run through anything valuable.
He actually did pretty good. If he ever wanted to quit his day job, he could be a forklift driver.
I'm not sure why, but I often hear the phrase, if Dan ever quits his day job. And I don't know if that's a suggestion or a referral.
We went ahead, unbolted it from the pallet, and we were able to lift the body up in the air and drag the old pallet out. We were able to roll the chassis underneath the body and then start to bring it down slowly, align everything up.
It's not like you can just drop the body on your chassis and run from there. You're definitely going to have to expect to either do some modifying or adjusting. We're lucky we can get these bodies at this point. We have to take what we can get. You know, you just can't assume that it's going to be a ready-to-roll kind of thing. You have to be prepared to put a little work in.
Once again, it comes down to body work versus body fun. And a little work is good for the souls. It can certainly keep you on your feet.
This is a little note from our friends at Real Deal Steel, right?
Right.
It says, please test fit all front sheet metal to check correct fit of fenders and hood. This car has never had any doghouse metal on it.
Doghouse.
What's doghouse metal?
They're referring to the whole front clip.
Really?
Hood, fenders, grill, everything like that.
Okay. So should we put some doghouse metal on it?
Yeah.
We got the full rolling body and chassis down on the floor and got it over to our fab area.
Okay, so we put the sheet metal on, right?
Right.
We have sheet metal?
Yeah, we've got the original hood, which was one thing we can save.
Okay.
We've got the fenders off another car that we can use.
Okay.
And we also have a special core support that we're going to use.
A special one?
Special one. Be Cool sent us a core support radiator setup. It's the whole thing.
Okay, great. All right, well, let's get it and start slapping it on.
All right.
Get our doghouse in shape. Okay, you want this here?
Yeah, you can put that there.
Okay. This is a much different look than this.
Right, this is the original one, the original core support. And Be Cool has a complete setup. This has got the core support, it's got the radiator. I mean, even look at the back here. I mean, it's even got the fans
built in.
Fans built in. I mean, this thing's ready to go. We chose the Be Cool because we've got this LS engine, we've got some horsepower, and they built this radiator to what we wanted, you know, as far as inlet and outlet for the radiator hoses, with the fans, the cooling, the fan switches, everything that we need for our engine to cool better, they provided for us.
How many caps do you need on this thing?
Well, you got the overflow for the radiator,
Yeah.
the radiator cap, and the power steering cap.
So the power steering is coming into here.
Right.
Okay.
So they think of everything.
Pretty smart. Pretty smart. All right, what's next?
Well, let's grab the fenders and hang those.
Okay.
Although you would never use fenders as your point of reference for panel alignment, it's good to have some original pieces available to see if things are at least in the right zone.
Eddie Motorsports sent us some really nice trick hood hinges with gas shocks and roller bearings in them. I mean, really nice stuff. So we bolted those to the firewall. We put the hood on. Now the hood is one of the only things we were to save from the old car. So everything's bolted up. We still have a little bit of alignment and adjustments to do on it, but we made some good progress today.
Even before we got this radiator, we knew this ride was going to be cool.
The Classic team had waited weeks to marry the Bel Air's body and chassis. After they arrived, it made sense to send them on a honeymoon.
Morning, Craig.
Morning, Dan. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing great.
So it's all one color now.
All one color.
That's great. How did this go?
Well, you know, we had Aries do the soda blasting on it because now it's all one